that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now done by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. Today I have for you the New Rebellion novel, one-off novel, but before I get to that, I have just one quick mention. I'm not going to talk about it, but in Adventure Journal number 15, which you can find on StarWarsTimeline.net, there's a short story called 2 for 1 by Paul Danner. It's a pretty decent little story, and if you're like, I need more expanded universe in my life, well, you won't do horribly with this one. It's not the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's a fine little thing. New Rebellion. These last couple ones have been kind of short, huh? But I just haven't had as much to say. The New Rebellion. I found the droid stuff kind of boring, to be honest. I also found the Han stuff, when it didn't involve Talon Card and Mara Jade, rather it's fine. Where I think this book does really well is the stuff with Luke, the stuff with Leia, the stuff with Cooler, the villain, and Brackus. I think that's where this book excels. Outside of that, hit or miss. But essentially there is this disturbance in the Force. There are these things going on. There's a new villain with a mask that moves, named Coolor, this new villain to face, this new dark sider. It happens to be a failed student. Now, the only sad thing is that we don't have a short story or anything involving Dolph, which is his real name, because the backstory to this character is that he was a student of Luke's. He got disillusioned because of, without getting into spoilers, stuff that happened to his family, and he became dark. Not a Sith, just a dark Jedi. And so this book is him trying to, siege power and control, with the help of another character who did get another appearance, which is Brackus, who chronologically I think we first saw in the I, Jedi novel by Michael Stackpole, where we learned that during the Jedi Academy trilogy, Brackus was there. Now, I am not this EU purist who will refuse to admit wrongs when wrongs are made. Okay, I love the EU. It's my bread and butter, but it is imperfect. But that's the thing, like, I can be honest about this stuff and know that, like, 90% of it was coherent and perfect. But it is a slight discrepancy that could probably be fixed somewhere. It might even be fixed somewhere, but just reading it on its own, it seemed like an issue, which is that it claims that Brackus and this other guy, who is now the villain, joined the Academy later. Now, that could be true for Dolph, but it can't be true for Brackus, because Brackus is in I, Jedi, which explicitly means he was there during the Jedi Academy trilogy. But this book makes the claim that Brackus did not exist, or was not around to be in Luke's Academy till after the Callista trilogy, which the Callista trilogy is most definitely after the Jedi Academy trilogy, so there's no way to reconcile that. That is a slight continuity error. It is what it is, though. Brackus is really interesting in here because he's not really the center focus. He's not the villain. He's kind of a henchman for the main bad guy. And yet we know down the line in the Young Jedi Knight series that he will be kind of the main focal point of that. But even then he uses other means. He never really does the active stuff himself, which I think is really interesting. And it's out of fear, more than anything, which fear leads to dark side as well. But Kohler wanted revenge. He was angry, bitter. Brackus is just scared because Luke had him go to the Dagobah cave, and what he saw scared him, and he ran away. So I thought that was interesting. But there's a lot of good conversations between Cooler, whatever, and Luke Skywalker and Leia and other characters. What I like about Cooler is that I completely understand his motivations, and yet can completely disagree with them as well. What's also fascinating is just knowing that this is a young guy. this is actually kind of a proto Kylo Ren, and I don't try not to bring up too many comparisons to new canon, but it, it, it really struck me when at the end of the book, everything's said and done, and they find out that it's just a young man, probably somebody around my age, in that suit, and she goes, Leia's like, that was just a kid, and it's very similar to, look at Spider-Man 2 with, even though Tobey Maguire definitely looked like an adult, but, he's supposed to be a teenager, or just getting to college. And then, you have the sequels where you have this intimidating, yeah, at least in episode 7, you have this intimidating mask and, deep voice, and it's Kylo Ren. And then you take off the mask and it's Adam Driver. And Adam Driver just doesn't have that intimidating look of a face, It's like me going up to you and like trying to, I'm gonna beat you up. Like, you're not gonna, no one's gonna be scared of me. Um, but so it's that thing where it's like, he needed this mask to kind of inspire fear, because he couldn't do it on his own. And I thought that was very similar to Kylo Ren. But I enjoy his motivations. It's flawed, but he's also younger, so it's more understandable. If this was like a 40-year-old, I'd be like, but seeing as how it's somebody like my age, it makes complete and utter sense why the character would act this way. Um, Also, the people who say that, you know, Luke's a Gary Stu in the expanded universe, I mean, he does get blown up a little bit because his X-Wing blows up, but he also does try to fight the main villain. And maybe if he was at 100%, he would have been able to defeat the villain. But regardless, he gets his butt handed to him in this book. So the idea that Luke was perfect is just not true because he gets beat down, So that was great. Um, One of the things I found funny is just a one-off line. I just like doing this to piss off Noah and everything. But there's a line where Luke is talking about, Jason and Jaina, how kind and pure-hearted Jason is, and something about Jaina, but then Anakin, Solo, quick to wanting to do violence, to fight, to protect the people he cares about. And Luke's like, Anakin Solo, the one to watch out for, in the future. How ironic. Because doesn't that make that a little bit more tragic? People say it's such a bad story, but think about it. Here Luke is making a little comic about Anakin, wanting to make sure he doesn't, follow in his grandfather's footsteps. Yet the one to worry about was the kind-hearted boy that would never hurt a fly. What does that remind you of? Oh, right. Anakin Skywalker, the kind-hearted boy from Tatooine, who became a monster. It's like poetry. It rhymes. It's brilliant. That wasn't intentional, but it's wonderful in hindsight. So, as the great Ian McDiarmid would say, how ironic. But there's a moment in chapter 9 where Han and Leia have this like little moment. It's just a little scene between them. But it's a beautiful little scene. I love getting to see Han and Leia just be happy with each other. No matter what happens, no matter the tragedies that befall their New Jedi Order or afterward, the one thing that remains consistent is their love for one another. That's true love right there. That is commitment, that is dedication, that despite everything that may happen to them, they stand by each other. They don't do what they did elsewhere, where they abandon each other and leave. Because that's not what you do in a committed relationship. Not in a faithful, honest, and good one. You get through the hard times, you stick by one another because that's what you promised. That's what the marriage vow is all about. And that is why Han and Leia remain two of the best couples in all fiction. No matter how much they banter or bicker, at the end of the day, they stand true to one another and they love one another. And that's how it should be. But yeah, I mean, the story goes, Luke gets kidnapped for a bit. Leia gets time to shine in this story. She, again, almost has a vote of no confidence, which I thought was a little annoying. Like, okay, Black Fleet Crisis already did this where, like, Leia's gonna be rejected from president, and they tried it again here. No wonder she just gave up after Hand of Thrawn and decided to not be the president of the entire, be the chief of state anymore. And unfortunately, Boris Vela would take that role, but still, just, here's what it is. But I would get tired, too, if people kept trying to vote me out every year, day in and day out. So, but yeah, overall, I thought this story was really good. I didn't go too much into specifics or anything, but I thought it was fun. I found the droid stuff kind of whatever. Like, I just found it kind of boring. The Han, the Han and Chewie and Lando stuff was fine. But it just feels like that run-of-the-mill, like, Star Wars, like, day of the week, you know? It was nice to see Mara Jade and Talon Card, come into the story, which was fun. They don't necessarily feel exactly like themselves, it's a different author, but it doesn't not feel like them, it just doesn't feel strongly like them. So, but it was still cool to see them in another story outside of a Zahn story, so that was fun. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, sharing helps out a ton. And when we return, we shall begin one of my favorite trilogies in the Bantam era, which is the Corellian trilogy, with evil doppelganger of Han Solo, Thraken Sao Solo. Until then, may the Force be with you.